I was standing in the parking garage at 9:47 p.m., my heart hammering so hard I could hear it echoing off the concrete walls. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that made everything feel like a scene from a movie I had no business being in. My phone buzzed in my pocket, another text from her. Level 3. By the silver Lexus. Please don't leave. I should have been home. I should have been on my couch with a beer, watching whatever meaningless game was on ESPN. Instead, I was here, about to do something that could blow up everything I thought I knew about myself. The worst part? I wanted to be here. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, and for the past 8 months, she'd been the reason I actually looked forward to Monday mornings. Let me back up. 6 months earlier, I was just another guy trying to survive the soul-crushing monotony of corporate America. My name's Ryan Mitchell, I'm 32 years old, and I worked, as a senior project coordinator at Harbinger Financial in downtown Chicago. It's exactly as boring as it sounds. I'd been with the company for 5 years, doing the same reports, attending the same meetings, nodding along to the same corporate buzzwords that meant absolutely nothing. Synergy. Paradigm shift. Circle back. My life had become a series of beige moments strung together by coffee breaks and the occasional happy hour where everyone pretended to like each other. I wasn't unhappy, exactly. I was just numb. Then Elena transferred to our department. I remember the day she walked in, late March, one of those Chicago mornings where winter was finally loosening its grip and you could almost smell spring trying to break through. Our manager, Dave, introduced her during the morning huddle. Everyone, this is Elena Rodriguez. She's joining us from the Boston office. Elena's going to be heading up the new client retention initiative. She smiled, and I swear something shifted in the room. Elena wasn't conventionally beautiful in that airbrushed, Instagram way. She was real. She had these warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled, dark hair she usually wore pulled back in a ponytail, and this energy, this energy, like she actually cared about being alive. In an office full of zombies shuffling through spreadsheets, she was Technicolor. Thanks, Dave, she said, her voice carrying just a hint of a Boston accent. I'm really excited to be here. I know retention isn't the sexiest topic, but I promise I'll try not to make these meetings any more boring than they already are. A few people chuckled. I was hooked. Over the next few weeks, Elena and I kept ending up in the same spaces. The break room at 10:30 a.m. The copy room on Thursday afternoons. We'd make small talk, nothing heavy, just the usual office banter. But there was something else there, something unspoken that hummed between us like an electrical current. She mentioned her husband in passing once. Carlos. They'd been married for 6 years. He was some kind of architect, worked crazy hours. She said it casually, the way you'd mention the weather, but I noticed something flicker across her face when she said his name. Something that looked like loneliness. I didn't ask questions. I had no right to. But I noticed things. Like how she'd sometimes stare out the window during meetings, her mind clearly somewhere else. How she'd linger in the office after everyone left, as if she was avoiding going home. How her laugh, this incredible, genuine laugh, became rarer as the weeks went on. We started having lunch together. It started innocently enough. One day in May, she knocked on my cubicle wall. Hey, Ryan. I'm about to grab some Thai food from that place on Wacker. Want anything? I'll come with you, I said, before I could think better of it. That became our thing. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'd grab lunch together. We talked about everything, movies, music, our college years, our completely irrational fears. She was afraid of moths. I was terrified of deep water. We laughed about the absurdity of our jobs, shared stories about terrible bosses and worse clients. She never talked about Carlos, and I never brought him up. I wasn't dating anyone. My last serious relationship had ended 2 years earlier, and I'd thrown myself into work as a distraction. My friends kept telling me I needed to get back out there, but I couldn't seem to work up the energy to care. Until Elena. I started living for those Tuesday and Thursday lunches. I'd plan what I was going to say, think of funny stories to share, anything to make her laugh. I learned that she loved old jazz music, that she'd wanted to be a painter before life got in the way, that she still kept a sketchbook she filled with charcoal drawings she never showed anyone. Maybe I'll show you sometime, she said once, and the way she looked at me when she said it made my stomach flip. I told myself it was just friendship. We were just two people who got along well, finding a bright spot in an otherwise mind-numbing job. That's all. I was lying to myself. Things changed in July. We were working late on a presentation for a major client, a pitch that could make or break our quarterly numbers. It was just the two of us in the conference room, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled papers. It was almost 8 p.m. I think my brain just officially quit, Elena said, leaning back in her chair and rubbing her eyes. I've been staring at these numbers so long they don't even look like numbers anymore. Want to take a break? I suggested. There's a decent wine bar 2 blocks from here. We could clear our heads, come back with fresh eyes. She hesitated, and I saw the internal debate play out on her face. Then she smiled. You know what? Yeah. Let's do it. The wine bar was one of those intimate places with exposed brick walls and candles on every table. We found a corner booth and ordered a bottle of Merlot. The conversation flowed easier than the wine. We talked about our dreams, the ones we'd given up on, the ones we were too scared to chase. Elena told me about the art school scholarship she'd turned down to study business, how her parents had convinced her it was the practical choice. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just been brave enough to go, she said, her finger tracing the rim of her wine glass. Maybe I'd be starving in some studio apartment in Brooklyn, eating ramen and painting masterpieces no one would ever see. But at least I'd be doing what I love, you know? It's not too late, I said. You're 30. That's not exactly ancient. She laughed, but it was sad. I have a mortgage, Ryan. A husband who needs me to be the stable one because his career is so unpredictable. I have responsibilities. What about what you need? The question hung in the air between us. Elena looked at me, and something in her eyes shifted. The professional distance we'd carefully maintained crumbled. I don't even know what I need anymore, she whispered. I should have changed the subject. I should have made a joke, lightened the mood, steered us back to safe territory. Instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. You deserve to be happy, Elena. She didn't pull away. Her fingers intertwined with mine, and we sat there in that dim wine bar, holding hands like teenagers, both of us knowing we'd just crossed a line we couldn't uncross. We didn't talk about it. We finished the bottle, walked back to the office in silence, completed the presentation, and went our separate ways. But everything had changed. Over the next few weeks, the tension between us became unbearable. We were professionals, we kept things appropriate at work, never touched, barely even made eye contact during meetings. But the lunches continued. And they became more charged, more intimate. She started telling me about her marriage. How Carlos had become a stranger. How they lived like roommates, passing each other in the hallway, making polite conversation over breakfast, sleeping on opposite sides of a bed that felt like an ocean. We're not unhappy, she said one afternoon, pushing her salad around her plate. We're just nothing. We don't fight. We don't laugh. We just exist in the same space. Have you talked to him about it? What would I even say? Hey honey, I feel empty inside and I don't think I love you anymore? How do you tell someone that? I didn't have an answer. The worst part is, he's a good man, she continued. He's not abusive, he doesn't cheat, he works hard. On paper, we're perfect. Everyone thinks we're this great couple. My mom calls us her favorite success story. But I feel like I'm slowly disappearing, Ryan. Like every day, a little bit more of me just vanishes. I wanted to tell her to leave him. I wanted to tell her she deserved more than settling for not unhappy. I wanted to tell her I was falling in love with her. Instead, I just listened. The text came on a Wednesday night in late August. I was at home, halfway through a frozen pizza and a Law and Order rerun, when my phone lit up. Can we talk? Not at the office. Somewhere private. My heart started racing. I typed back. When? Tomorrow night? After work. Sure. Where? That's when she suggested meeting in the parking garage. I barely slept that night. I played out 100 different scenarios in my head. Maybe she was going to end our friendship, tell me it was inappropriate, that she needed to focus on her marriage. Maybe she was going to quit. Maybe, and this was the thought that kept me awake, maybe she was going to tell me she felt the same way I did. The next day at work was torture. We barely spoke. During our weekly team meeting, I caught her looking at me twice, but she quickly looked away. At 5:30, people started filing out. By 6, the office was mostly empty. I pretended to work on a report, watching the clock tick toward 9 o'clock. At 8:45, I got her text. Level 3. By the silver Lexus. Please don't leave. Which brings me back to where we started. Me, standing in that parking garage, my whole body vibrating with anticipation and fear. I saw her before she saw me. She was leaning against her car, still in her work clothes, a navy blue dress that I'd noticed that morning and tried not to stare at. Her arms were crossed, and even from a distance, I could see she was shaking. I walked over slowly, giving her time to change her mind, to get in her car and drive away. She didn't. "Hey," I said softly. "Hey." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "So, what's going on?" Elena looked up at me, and her eyes were glistening with tears. "I can't do this anymore, Ryan." My stomach dropped. "Do what?" "Pretend," she said. "Pretend that I don't think about you every second of every day. Pretend that you're just my coworker, just my friend. Pretend that I don't feel like I'm drowning and you're the only one who sees it." I couldn't breathe. "I'm married," she continued, her voice cracking. "I made vows. I promised forever. But God, Ryan, I feel more alive when I'm having lunch with you than I've felt in 6 years of marriage. What does that say about me? What kind of person does that make me?" "Elena, I asked you here because I needed to tell you the truth," she said, tears now streaming down her face. "I'm falling in love with you. And I don't know what to do about it." The parking garage fell away. The flickering lights, the concrete, the distant sound of traffic, it all disappeared. There was only her. "I'm in love with you too," I said. And then we were kissing. It wasn't graceful or cinematic. It was desperate and messy and filled with months of pent-up longing. Her back pressed against the car, my hands in her hair, her fingers gripping my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "This is wrong," she whispered against my lips. "I know. I'm married. I know. We shouldn't. I know." But we kissed again anyway. We didn't sleep together that night. Despite everything, despite the intensity of what we felt, Elena wasn't ready to cross that final line. We sat in her car for 3 hours, just talking, holding hands, occasionally kissing, both of us trying to figure out what the hell we were doing. "I can't cheat on him," she said finally. "I can't be that person. But I also can't keep living a lie. So what do you want to do?" She was quiet for a long time. "I need to talk to Carlos. Really talk to him. He deserves to know the truth." My heart sank. Part of me, the selfish part, wanted her to leave him right then, to run away with me and damn the consequences. But I knew it wasn't that simple. It never is. "Okay," I said. "I don't know what's going to happen," she said, looking at me with those beautiful, sad eyes. "I don't know if he'll want to work on things, or if this is the end. I don't know where you and I fit into any of this. But I need to do this right. I need to be honest. I understand. Do you? Because I might choose to stay with him, Ryan. I might decide to try to fix my marriage. And if I do, you and I, we can't be friends anymore. We can't be anything." The thought of not having her in my life, in any capacity, was like a knife to the chest. But I nodded. "I get it." She kissed me one more time, soft and sweet and heartbreaking. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." Then she got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing alone in that parking garage, my whole world turned upside down. The next week was hell. Elena called in sick on Friday. She didn't return my texts. I tried to focus on work, but I was a zombie, just going through the motions. Our coworkers noticed something was off, but nobody said anything. On Tuesday, she came back. I saw her walk in, and my heart leaped. But she walked right past my cubicle without looking at me. During lunch, she ate at her desk. She avoided me all day. At 5 o'clock, I got an email. The subject line was blank. The message read, "Can you meet me at Millennium Park tonight? 7 o'clock, by the Bean. I need to tell you something." Those 5 hours until 7 were the longest of my life. Millennium Park was crowded with tourists and locals enjoying the late summer evening. I found Elena sitting on a bench facing the Cloud Gate sculpture, the Bean, watching people take selfies with their reflections. I sat down next to her, close enough that our shoulders touched. How did it go? I asked. She took a deep breath. I told him everything. Well, not everything. I didn't tell him your name or that we worked together. But I told him I've developed feelings for someone else. That I've been unhappy for a long time. That I think we've been holding on to something that died a while ago. What did he say? He cried. Her voice broke. God, Ryan, he cried. I've known Carlos for 10 years, and I've never seen him cry. He said he knew. He said he could feel me pulling away, but he didn't know how to stop it. He said he still loves me. Tears were streaming down her face now. I took her hand. He asked if I wanted a divorce, she continued. And I didn't know what to say. Because ending a marriage isn't just about not being in love anymore. It's about disappointing everyone. My parents adore him. Our friends are couple friends, we'll lose half of them. We have a house, shared bank accounts, a whole life built together. And for what? For a chance at something that might not even work out? My chest tightened. Is that what you think? That we won't work out? She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. I don't know, Ryan. I don't know anything anymore. 3 months ago, my life made sense. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable. Predictable. Safe. And then you happened, and now everything's chaos. Elena. I told Carlos I need time, she said. Time to figure out what I want. He's staying with his brother for a while. We're going to try counseling, see if there's anything left to save. It felt like she'd punched me in the gut. You're going to try to make it work with him. I have to try, Ryan. I owe him that. I owe us that. 6 years of marriage has to mean something. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was making a mistake, that she was choosing obligation over happiness, that we were meant to be together. But I didn't. Because she was right. She had to try. Where does that leave us? I asked quietly. I think we need to take a step back, she said, and each word felt like a small death. No more lunches. No more texts. I need space to figure this out without you clouding my judgment. I cloud your judgment? She smiled sadly. You're all I think about. How am I supposed to know what I really want when every time I see you, my heart makes decisions my brain knows are crazy? I understood. I hated it, but I understood. Okay, I said. I'll give you space. We sat there in silence, watching the sun set behind the Chicago skyline, both of us knowing this might be goodbye. Ryan? Yeah? If things were different? She trailed off. I know, I said. Me too. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we stayed like that until the stars came out. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life. True to my word, I gave Elena space. We were cordial at work, professional, distant. We didn't have lunch together. We didn't text. I watched from afar as she went to counseling with Carlos, as she tried to rebuild something that maybe had never been there in the first place. I threw myself into my work, picked up extra projects, anything to keep my mind busy. My friends noticed I was off, but I couldn't explain it. How do you tell people you're heartbroken over someone who was never really yours? I went on a few dates. Tinder, Bumble, the usual digital meat market. Every single one was a disaster. I'd sit across from perfectly nice women and feel nothing. Because they weren't her. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. Maybe I should have fought harder. Maybe I should have told her to choose me, to be selfish for once in her life. Maybe love was supposed to be reckless and impulsive, not careful and considerate. But deep down, I knew Elena was doing the right thing. She was being honest with herself and with Carlos. She was facing her choices head-on instead of running away. It was one of the things I loved most about her. October came. The leaves turned golden red, and Chicago transformed into something beautiful and melancholic. I'd been working late one Thursday, trying to finish a report that was due the next morning, when I heard a knock on my cubicle wall. Elena. She looked different. Lighter somehow, like she'd put down a weight she'd been carrying for years. Hey, she said. Hey. Can we talk? My heart started racing. Of course. We went to the break room, which was empty at 8:30 p.m. She poured 2 cups of bad coffee neither of us would drink, and we sat across from each other at the small table. I left him, she said. 3 words. The world tilted. We tried, Ryan. We really did. 2 months of counseling, Honest conversations, date nights, everything the therapist suggested. And you know what we figured out? We're not in love. We probably never were. We were comfortable. We checked each other's boxes. Good job, good family, shared values. But there was no spark, no passion, no deep connection. She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Our therapist said something that stuck with me. She said, staying in a marriage because it's not terrible isn't the same as staying because it's wonderful. And she was right. Carlos and I, we weren't making each other miserable. But we weren't making each other happy either. We were just coexisting. How's he doing? I asked. He's okay. Better than okay, actually. I think we both felt this sense of relief once we admitted it was over. Like we'd been pretending so hard for so long that actually telling the truth was liberating. We're doing the divorce amicably. No lawyers needed. We're splitting everything 50-50 and staying friends. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. The thing is, Elena said, leaning forward, I didn't leave him for you. My stomach dropped. I left him for me, she continued. Because I deserve to be with someone who makes me feel alive. Who sees me, really sees me. Who wants to know what I'm thinking, what I'm dreaming about, what scares me at 3 in the morning. Whether that person is you or someone else or no one at all, I needed to leave. I needed to choose myself. I understood what she was saying. And God, I loved her even more for it. But, she said, her eyes meeting mine, I'm hoping that person is you. Everything stopped. I've spent the last 2 months trying to convince myself that what I feel for you is just an escape fantasy, she said. That it's not real, that it's just the excitement of something new. But it didn't fade, Ryan. If anything, staying away from you made me more sure. You're not an escape. You're not a fantasy. You're real, and what I feel for you is real, and I don't want to run from it anymore. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. I know this is messy, she continued. I know I'm technically still married, even though we're separated. I know we work together and that's complicated. I know we should probably wait, be smart about this, take things slow. I kissed her. Right there in the break room, under the awful fluorescent lights, next to the coffee maker that never worked properly and the fridge full of labeled lunches. I kissed her like I'd been holding my breath for 2 months and she was oxygen. When we pulled apart, we were both crying. I love you, I said. I've loved you since the day you made that joke about retention initiatives. I've loved you through every lunch, every late-night work session, every moment I couldn't tell you. And I'll love you tomorrow and the day after that and every day you'll let me. She laughed through her tears. That's a lot of days. Good. We left the office together that night, holding hands, both of us knowing we were starting something that would probably be complicated and definitely be worth it. That was over a year ago. I'm not going to lie and tell you it was easy. Dating a coworker is complicated. Dating someone going through a divorce is complicated. Dealing with the judgment from people who didn't understand, who thought Elena was just a cheater looking for an upgrade, was hard. But we navigated it together. Elena moved into her own apartment in Wicker Park, a tiny one-bedroom with exposed brick and windows that let in the most beautiful morning light. She set up an easel by those windows and started painting again. Every Sunday morning, I'd wake up to find her there, covered in charcoal or paint, creating these incredible pieces that she finally started sharing with the world. Last spring, she had her first gallery show. Seeing her stand there, surrounded by her art, talking to people who genuinely appreciated her work, God, I've never been prouder of anyone in my life. We were careful at work. Professional. We didn't hide our relationship, but we didn't flaunt it either. Some people whispered, sure. But most people were happy for us. Even Dave, our manager, pulled me aside once and said, I've never seen Elena smile this much. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Her divorce was finalized in March. Carlos came to her gallery show, actually. Brought his new girlfriend, a fellow architect he'd started dating a few months after the separation. They all had coffee together afterward, and Elena came home beaming. We're really going to be okay, she said. All of us. As for me, I finally understood what people meant when they said you know when you know. Elena wasn't perfect. She left her art supplies everywhere. She was terrible with directions. She got irrationally upset when her favorite shows were canceled. She snored. She stole the covers. And I loved every single thing about her. We're getting married next month. October, when the leaves turn golden red, in a small ceremony at the park where she first told me she'd left Carlos. Just close friends and family. Nothing fancy. Elena's wearing a dress she designed herself, cream-colored with hand-painted flowers along the hem. Carlos is coming, and bringing his girlfriend. My best man is my college roommate, who I finally told the whole story to over too many beers. My mom asked me once if I felt guilty. If I felt like I'd broken up a marriage. I told her the truth. Elena's marriage was broken long before I came along. All I did was show her what it felt like to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. And she did the same for me. We didn't have an affair. We didn't sneak around or betray anyone. We fell in love, and we were honest about it, and we made hard choices that hurt people we cared about. But we did it with integrity. Sometimes love isn't simple. Sometimes it shows up at the wrong time, in the wrong place, with the wrong person who's somehow exactly right. And you have to decide, do you run from it because it's complicated? Or do you run toward it because it's real? Elena chose real. So did I. Here's what I learned from all of this. Life is too short to settle for, not unhappy. If you're just going through the motions, if you're living in a beige world of should and supposed to and expected, you're not really living. You're just waiting to die. Love, real love, sees you. It doesn't just appreciate the parts you show the world, it cherishes the messy, complicated, scared parts too. It makes you want to be braver, kinder, more honest. And sometimes, being honest means disappointing people. It means admitting that something isn't working, even when it looks perfect on paper. It means choosing the harder path because it's the one that leads to actually being alive. Elena could have stayed with Carlos. It would have been easier. No drama, no divorce, no judgment. But she would have spent the rest of her life wondering what if. She would have disappeared a little more each day, until there was nothing left of the woman who dreamed of painting in Brooklyn, eating ramen in a studio apartment. Instead, she chose herself. And then she chose me. We're both glad she did. So let me ask you something, because I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever felt truly seen by someone? Have you ever met a person who made you feel more alive just by being in the same room? And if you have, what did you do about it? Did you run toward it, or away from it? Because here's the thing, I think most of us spend our lives playing it safe. We settle for good enough. We convince ourselves that passion is for movies and novels, that real life is about being practical and responsible and making the smart choice. But what if the smartest choice is the one that scares you? What if real life is supposed to be passionate and messy and occasionally heart-stopping? What if we're all just one honest conversation away from everything changing? I'm not saying everyone in an unhappy marriage should leave. I'm not saying emotional affairs are fine. I'm not saying any of this was simple or easy or that we didn't make mistakes along the way. What I am saying is this, your life is yours. Not your parents', not your partner's, not society's. Yours. And you get to decide what makes it worth living. For Elena, it was being seen. Being valued. Being brave enough to admit when something wasn't working and choosing to try for something better. For me, it was finding someone who made me want to be the best version of myself. Someone who challenged me, inspired me, made me believe in possibility again. What is it for you? I started this story in a parking garage, my heart pounding, about to change my life forever. I'm ending it in a tiny apartment in Wicker Park, watching the woman I love paint by the morning light, knowing that meeting her after hours was the best decision I ever made. Everything did change that night. But not in the way I expected. It changed slowly, painfully, beautifully. Through hard conversations and harder choices. Through guilt and grief and growing. Through learning that love isn't about finding the perfect person, it's about being brave enough to be imperfect together. So yeah. My married coworker said, "Meet me after hours." I went. And everything changed. The question is, if your life offered you that moment, that choice, that chance, what would you do? Think about it. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own choices and your own chances, do me a favor, subscribe to Midnight Confessions. Because we all have stories like this, moments when everything hung in the balance, when we had to choose between safe and real. I'd love to hear yours. Until next time, this is Ryan, reminding you that sometimes the most terrifying thing you can do is also the most necessary. Choose real. Choose honest. Choose alive. Even when it's complicated. especially when it's complicated. Thanks for listening.